So Apple, it's been leaked, it has developed software to be, put on iPhones after some upcoming update, which will monitor the photos of iPhone users uh, in the name currently of trying to detect um, images which are evidence of abuse against children. We'll put it that way. I can't really say it on YouTube. I don't want this video to draw the wrong kind of attention from the algorithm, so I'm not going to say it. But Apple has come up with their own algorithm to try and identify these sorts of photos and send a signal to the authorities and say, hey, this person has very bad materials on their iPhone. Now, it's not entirely clear from the article that I was reading whether or not this is scanning directly on people's phones or if it's just scanning their iCloud. Because there's two levels there of invasion of privacy. First, iCloud is an extra service that you sign up for, and you're storing data on Apple servers. And in that case, it's a little more reasonable that Apple would be scanning their own servers for illegal material, because Apple doesn't want that. It's a liability issue for them, potentially. They don't want illegal materials stored on their servers. But if they're scanning the iPhones themselves, then they're going after something physically that is stored locally that belongs to you, and they're scanning all your photos. It's not a matter of I'm not a pervert, so I have nothing to worry about. First of all, I think it's safe to say at this point in American history, this will very quickly be broadened to a scope much wider than just these images which demonstrate evidence of child abuse. The sorts of images that were found on Hunter Biden's laptop, for instance, which, by the way, was an Apple product. This sort of machine learning algorithm very easily could be used to search for any sort of material, not just these unsavory photos, which are of course illegal, but then again, this creates a sort of moral hazard. Even if you just leave it at the images related to children, this creates a moral hazard, because if somebody sends someone perhaps one of these images, and then it ends up on that person's phone, it will automatically trigger this machine learning algorithm to alert the police. And this could be a way of swatting someone, but where there's a real crime. Because remember, when it comes to these images, the crime is possession. So if it's on your phone, that's a crime, and they're going to prosecute that for you, even if it was unsolicited, I would think, the way the laws are written. Because this has happened to people where they've had these materials planted on their computer, and they've been prosecuted and thrown in prison for a long time. Now, the trouble most of the time with planting these sorts of materials on someone's computer is that the authorities have to learn of it somehow, and they have to get a warrant to search that person's materials. But if we have this this Apple program in place that alerts authorities automatically when these materials are found to be present, then the incentive for whether it's the FBI or a government agency or some other bad actor to plant these images on someone's device, it greatly incentivizes that. Because the guarantee at that point, as long as you make sure that these images are on someone's device, it's going to alert the algorithm, and the authorities will come knocking. And so that's what I mean when I say this will be expanded. It's not just going to be used to target perverts. Even if they maintain the official scope of this program, only targeting these sorts of images and nothing else, even if they're not trying to target political speech necessarily, this could be used on anybody who is a problem for any sort of powerful institution. People, in other words, who have no interest, let's say, in these sorts of images, who are not at all compromised in that way. They could be targeted, have these images planted on them for, because people are mad at them for some other reason. Let's say they've attracted the ire of a certain powerful organization, whether that be a government or a corporation. This, in a way, is it's worse than the NSA, because the NSA, yes, they collect everything that we send and receive, and that's all, no matter what you do. All your stuff, whether it's unsavory or savory, and it's the same thing. If somebody sends you something that's illegal, the NSA has that as soon as it's sent to you. All your communications are tracked and logged. But with the NSA, they're collecting so much on so many people, and they don't really have a way to go through all of it. And of course, supposedly, the NSA is somewhat constrained by the Fourth Amendment, and that they're supposed to go get a warrant before they, unmask people or look at any of their stuff. They can't just look through everybody's stuff, all their files. They can't just open up your Stasi file, which I'm sure they do anyway, but legally there's at least that fig leaf of privacy. Apple, on the other hand, is subject to none of that. They have their mystical terms of service, and as long as you, use an Apple product or an Apple device, you agree to their terms of service or their terms and conditions, whatever they call it. You click I agree, and then they can look through everything you have. And they're not going to stop here. They could just as easily scan text-based data on your phone. In fact, much more easily. Look for keywords, look for certain patterns of words, and detect that you are a dissident, report you to the authorities. They could take your private communications and then, hand that over to the FBI and say, hey, you should target this person for a sting operation because they are anti-government minded, let's say, and you should try and entrap them. And again, in this case, Apple is acting as a cutout of the government. They are going around the Fourth Amendment, searching through people's private data on their device and handing the results over to the authorities and flagging them for them. They are they're doing what the government would like to do. But technically, they're a private company, so they can get away with it. That's what we're told. But they are, of course, agents of the state. That is explicitly in this case. They're telling the insiders who know about this program, who leaked it, that they are doing this so that they can scan their users' iPhones and alert authorities. And I want to make this clear as often as I can throughout this video so that people don't clip it. And, not that anybody would clip me, but maybe in 10 years from now, let's say I'm someone prominent, they can go back and say, oh, this person was defending perverts, let's say. I'm not doing that at all. I'm saying that this is not going to stop with them. And, it's always the worst people in society who are used as the scapegoats when the authorities want to take away the civil liberties for everyone. I mean, it's obviously, this is the same playbook back from, when the Patriot Act was passed. This is like the Patriot Act 2.0, except I guess on a slightly smaller scale, but in terms of the intensity of it, it's much worse. If this applies to you, I'm sure for now you can get away from it by just, not being an Apple customer, but what are your choices, Apple or Android? Do you think Android won't jump on this? Google is not going to jump on this bandwagon and implement a similar program? And then what are you going to have to do? What, are you going to buy one of these Freedom phones? I mean, I don't even know if that's a legitimate service. I think there's, some of these hacker guys have come up with some decent phones that are private. But a normal person, they're not going to go through all that stuff. And frankly, if you do go through all that stuff, that in and of itself would make you a target, probably. That in and of itself, the fact that you're not plugged into the system, that you don't have an iPhone or an Android, would, in and of itself, make you suspicious to the authorities, and it would make them target you. So this is a very dangerous step, and I don't know if I'll remember to reference this video later, but I think that in the future, looking back, we will see this point as a major pivot point, as a major loss on the road of declining privacy. here in the United States. Of course, for now, nobody will oppose it. Nobody will get upset about it because of who it is targeting. They'll say, well, gee, those are the worst people in the world. I'm not going to come out against this because then people will say I'm defending the worst people in the world. Oh, one last thing. For now, we're told that this algorithm is going to be looking for hashes. I'm not a programmer. I don't really fully understand what hashes are. But they're looking for hashes that match certain images that are in a database put together by some nonprofit. And so they have a pre-existing database of these images which are evidence of child abuse. Again, keep using that phrase. There is a set pool that they're looking for of known images. They say, hey, we know 100% that's what this is. So we're not to the stage yet to where they're looking at your pictures and they're going to say, I think that person looks underage. 40 years in prison for you, you pedophile. What this is, we're told, these are images that they know 100%. These are underage people who were abused. And, we know if you have this image on your phone, you're a bad guy. But, like I said, you've got the potential, since this is a known list, whoever knows what the list of images are, they could send people who they don't like these images, plant them on their device secretly, so that the person doesn't even have a chance to, delete them, and try and at least make a good faith attempt and say, hey, somebody sent this to me, I deleted it immediately. If it's planted on there without their knowledge, that would be an issue. And then, of course, there was a guy there were people making the point that, and again, I'm not technically savvy enough to understand how this works, but you can trick an algorithm that is looking for hashes. You could have an image that clearly has nothing to do with children or young people being abused, something that is, a digital image, but has the same hashes and will trigger the algorithm. So all around, this is a very bad, very dangerous program. It's sad to see Apple go down this path, especially since they stood tall after the San Bernardino shooting and said we're not going to unlock their iPhone. We have a commitment to our customers' privacy, but clearly that is no longer the case. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.